Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I wanted to take some time and get on the computer and kind of record some thoughts. You have to excuse me for kind of being dressed down. I just finished doing some stuff, so you're kind of getting me in my rawest form. A lot of people who know about anything that I do, you know that I'm not big on putting on airs. I'm not big on bowing to white folks. I'm not big on trying to be something other than what I am. And the reason I do that is because when you put on illusions, you always end up looking stupid when the illusion is erased and the mask is taken off. So I'm kind of responding in a very raw, I hope authentic way to this essay that somebody just sent over to me. That came from a brother that I really respect. It was actually a group of brothers that co-signed on it, but the the person whose blog it was appeared on is Mark Anthony Neal, who's a friend of mine, and we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. We see eye to eye on some things, but not everything. We see eye to eye on the fact that we both do advocate for black men, and I respect that. But where we don't see eye to eye is that what you find a lot of times is you see black male scholars kind of being pressured to fold and bend to kind of a liberal agenda. And I've made it very clear. I'm more like I'm more a little bit more in the category of Dr. Umar Johnson. Not that I agree with everything Dr. Umar Johnson says. Now, just mind you, that's not. I believe in free thought, not sort of coordinated thought. You know, this idea that we all think alike and we all believe in exactly the same thing on a multitude of dimensions. I think is not just problematic and simple-minded, but it's typically a lie. It's typically not true. I mean, but you see the Democrats and the liberals kind of all saying, well, this liberal believes this, so every liberal has to believe this. Or you'll see, conservatives do the same thing, where they literally will coordinate their commentary, and I think that's kind of silly, but but at the same time, that's how you build coalitions. That's how you operate in a political world, and I understand that. I'm more so in the group of people that says, sometimes you got to stand alone if you think you're standing for the truth. And so, saying that and saying that humbly, and also saying that I don't know all the answers here. I'm gonna, I'm gonna have to double down and really hunker down. And I'm doing this video to to authentically explain why I wrote the essay that I wrote, and what the intent was behind it, and what it means, and why I'm not apologizing for a single syllable in the article. Now, the essay that I think Mark Anthony Neal was referring to, along with his coalition, was an essay that I wrote on Ball Sports. That's brothersonsports.com. It's a site. The acronym is BOSS, and that stands for Brothers on Sports and Society. And I created that blog with a coalition of black men who are sick and tired of other people telling us what to think. We're sick and fucking tired, and I cuss too, just so you know. I'm not pretending to be a perfect man. We are sick and tired of liberals telling us what to think. We're sick and tired of conservatives acting like we're animals. We're sick and tired of Negroes bending and folding to fit into what the mainstream wants. So if the mainstream is all behind gay rights, then we got to get behind gay rights. If the mainstream, believes that black men are thugs and criminals and deserve to be in prison, or they don't think that's an important issue, then we need to be quiet about it too. Um, our slogan for the site is that this is a place where black men control the conversation. What that means, and so we tell people flat out, look, this is a site for black men, by black men. Most of the writers are black men. Some of the readers are not black men, but we tell them, look, if you come in here with another agenda that is not coordinated with the freedom of thought for black men, then you can go to hell. You can leave. You're going to be offended because we're not trying to fit into the mainstream. And the reason we can do this is because of the lessons I learned from my many hours of conversation with Minister Louis Farrakhan, which is that there has to be a place, almost like Tupac's Thug Mansion, where brothers can just kick it, where black men can be economically independent, spiritually and psychologically independent, and do what we want, say what we want, without worrying about the feminists coming in and saying, "Oh, you black men are bad," or the liberals coming in and saying, "Oh, you should focus on this issue," or these people, these Negroes on TV talking about black male respectability as being the answer to racism. I don't buy that. Let's just be real here. And I'm going to get to the essay in a second. Let's just be real here. And we got to start with the foundation. Black men have unemployment rates that would be unacceptable for any other group in America. No group in America would tolerate 25, 30% unemployment and act like it's not a crisis. That is a depression. We are living in a depression every day of our lives, and nobody cares. If it were white women that had unemployment at 25, 30%, Obama would be impeached by now. Do you understand this? And so when I go out and I talk about this, when I advocate for black men, I have so many people who somehow interpret black male advocacy to mean that you are somehow attacking other people. And to some extent that makes sense because they're accustomed to brothers being powerless. They're accustomed to brothers not having their own voice. They're accustomed to brothers only succeeding by folding and bending to somebody else's agenda, which is exactly why Mark got his great position at Duke University. I'm not saying he's a great scholar, but believe me, if he was talking the same shit that I'm talking, his ass will be out of there in a second. That's a fact. Dr. Umar Johnson, as brilliant as he is, will never get a job at Duke. Okay, so let's continue. And again, I'm not even disrespecting Mark. I'm just telling the truth. So, and again, I'm going to reach out to Mark so we can have a private conversation because I don't think this whole talking through media thing is always the best way to do things. But there are things that need to be discussed right now. What else is going on with black men? We're being sent to prison in droves. I mean, these are our concentration camps. These are the things that are creating mental illness unlike anything else, creating death, destruction, and disease unlike anything else, destroying our families unlike anything else. And guess what? When we show up and we ask these liberals, these so-called liberal friends, who to help us, they don't give a damn. They're like, oh well, black men are dying, so it doesn't matter. Violence. I won't even talk about what's going on with urban violence. How so many black men are dying in the streets and they're not even putting it in the newspaper. When my best friend got his brains blown out in front of his daughter, the newspaper put it in the back of the paper at the bottom and didn't even mention it hardly. And this white woman from across town got shot the same day. They talked about it as the lead story on the news every day for a week. They held a candlelight vigil for her every single day for a week. They had a $25,000 reward. The police announced, they had press conferences and said, we will not stop until until we get justice for this family. Well, what about my friend and his family? So my point here is this. I think black men need to stop suffering in silence. That's just my bottom line. And this goes into my essay. My point is this. Anybody who reads that essay and finds anything in that essay that is disrespectful or degrading toward women or is somehow harmful to other people, prove it to me. Prove it to me. I mean, send me a quote and show me explain exactly why those words were not acceptable. Because what I find is that when my other very good friend, now these are my friends here that I'm talking about, when my other very good friend, Mark Lamont Hill, had something about the link on his wall, and he mentioned, he connected it to rape culture, which I did not understand. Most of the people who criticized it, they either criticized only the title, because all they read was the title, and I'll explain the title in a minute, or they just criticized it with no proof, nothing to validate anything. And I know where that's coming from. That comes from the fact that most people in America are accustomed to playing for a political football team. What they do is they just hunker down on their particular position, and they don't want to hear any competing evidence. They don't want to consider the fact, for example, that in the abortion or in the debate over pro-life, pro-choice, that fathers' rights have to be discussed. They don't want to believe that fathers should have any rights. That's the conclusion typically. Well, you exercise your right when you decided to sleep with the woman, so you have no right to decide if your child gets to live or die. So I'm getting emails from brothers talking about the pain. The email I got today from Andre Hatchett, the founder of BuyBlackNYC.com, a responsible, intelligent brother who talks about how he had nightmares for years because his girlfriend aborted his baby without even caring for 1 second about what he thought. He even asked her if he could take the baby and keep the baby himself, and she could go on and do whatever. He just wanted his child to have a chance to live. There was no recourse for him in the courts, that she took away his rights. He is in pain from this. Now, I'm not saying that she was wrong for exercising her right to choose, but the fact is that you cannot build one person's freedom by restricting somebody else's freedom, by trampling on somebody else's rights. And black men have rights too. And so here's where this essay was going. Let me explain the title. Mark asked me to clarify the essay and modify it. Okay, I'm modifying it now with this conversation because I'm not going to modify the words. There's really nothing else for me to change in terms of what I said. The title How sleeping with the wrong woman can turn you into a rapist was meant to say that if you are a black man who would normally not rape anybody, first of all, let's just say this: I've taken all the rapists off the table. All the legitimate rape cases are off the table. Those cases should be dealt with. I have daughters. I have a mother who loves me. I have a sister. I have all these women in my life and I don't want to see them raped. So somehow the conclusion that I want to promote rape culture would be a little bit silly because I don't want to see my daughters call me and tell me that they're raped. In fact, I talk to them all the time with the exact symmetry of the very argument that I made in this essay, where I tell them there are a lot of crazy men out here. Be careful about putting yourself in bad situations. Don't even think about going on a date with a man if he looks like a man who would not be a good father to your children. Do not go to parties and get drunk off your ass where you're going to wake up the next morning and find out that somebody was having sex with you while you were asleep. Those are common sense arguments. I'm not going to sit here and say, baby, go out and be irresponsible and stupid and ignorant, and then let's just hope that nobody rapes you because you got drunk at the party and slept with some guy who you didn't want to sleep with. I'm not going to say that. That's not my job as a father. And so if people don't like it, then whatever, go to hell. Let's move on. So the title was really meant for men who don't want to get caught up. All those black men who are in prison for things they did not do. The numbers are large. The numbers are large. Understand that every time you hear about a black man who gets out of prison because the Innocence Project did the due diligence to help him get out, realize that there are probably 1,000 other men who did not get the support of the Innocence Project. I know brothers who are in prison for things they did not do. And you know how they got there? They got there because they went to court. Somebody accused them of something. They didn't have any money to really fight the charge. And this attorney, this public defender told them, you better take a plea. Just like they did with Brian Banks. Brian Banks' case out in California, the football player who was falsely accused of rape, his case resonated with hundreds of thousands of Your Black World readers because Brian Banks represents a lot of brothers who are out here. His attorney told him, he told his lawyer, he said, look, I didn't do this. I want to fight this. I want to get access to my rights to justice. And his attorney told him flat out, you are a big black man. No jury will believe you. You need to go ahead and take the plea. So let's think about what that means. That means that he was then forced to go into this horribly dysfunctional situation, into this torturous prison system where men are murdered and raped all the time. Notice, you don't hear the sexual assault advocates talking about prison rape. They don't give a shit if black men are getting raped, but they'll talk all day about a white woman who got raped, even if she was sleeping with a man voluntarily at first and then decided to change her mind. And I don't agree with those cases. But what about all those men who are going to prison getting raped and traumatized for the rest of their life? Why are they not talking about that too? And if I sound angry, it's because I am. Because black people have to stop thinking that we don't have a right to be indignant about the things that people are doing to us. So excuse me, I'm going to calm myself down so I can finish my argument here. So consider this to be my intellect, and I do have a real PhD. I study 10 hours a day for eight damn years, so I'm not an idiot. I didn't come up with this on the side of my hip. These are things that I have thought through for a very long time. So consider this to be intellect fueled by passion, because I'm a passionate person. I'm not going to hide that from you. So let's go back to Brian. Brian is told to go into this dysfunctional situation where where there's a good chance you're going to be sexually assaulted, where you're going to have a mental illness when you get out, because it's not natural for a person to live in that place. You're going to live for the rest of your life with the stigma of being a rapist, of being a sex offender. Even though he did not deserve it, and he's being told to do all this because he needs to bend and fold and cater to white people's ignorance. Because this jury will never believe that a big black man might be innocent, he is being asked to take the best option that is available to him, which is to go to prison. And Brian Banks was lucky enough, if you want to call him lucky. I don't think he's lucky. I think that poor brother is traumatized. He was lucky enough that his victim was dumb enough to admit that she lied. And if you think that this is the only case where this happens, you are out of your damn mind. First of all, we go back to slavery. White women have been doing this to brothers forever. They want the black dick at night, but then during the daytime, they want to act all prim and proper like the black man raped them. That's been happening all throughout history, still happens to this day. And even though somebody, I think Rosa Clemente, gave some stats about how it's easier to be struck by lightning than to be falsely accused of rape. Well, first of all, those stats apply to all men. Not black men. Black men, we have a special place in the universe. We have a special relationship with the criminal justice system. It's not a good relationship. White men have access to the justice system. So when they're accused, falsely accused of something, they can go get the expensive lawyer. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt from the jury. Black men can't afford the expensive lawyer. They don't get the benefit of the doubt from the jury. We are presumed to be criminals. So in that particular context, it is absolutely necessary that black people have conversations with their sons that are honest. Not, they don't have to be politically correct. Don't worry about what the damn feminists are gonna say about you telling your son not to go sleep with a wolf in freak's clothing. I use that term. I use that term to basically say that there are some women who will fall all over these men when they become the baller on campus, or you get that money. When I started getting money and I had a PhD, I had women throwing all kinds of stuff at me, and it was the advice of my father, who's about the most politically incorrect man that you would ever meet. It was the advice of my father that made me wise enough to avoid the temptation of putting myself in situations where I'm going to get caught up and destroyed, where everything I've worked for is going to end up in harm's way because I live in a society that wants to see me dead. And if you don't believe that that is the reality black men are facing, you are either A, not a black man, which means you probably shouldn't even be watching this video. This conversation is really not for you. I'm talking to the brothers, really. But then number two, you've lived a privileged experience, or you haven't learned yet. You have not been in a situation. Maybe you're like O.J. Simpson, who didn't realize he was black until his black ass was on trial for murdering a white woman. Then he found out he was black real fast. So the point of this article was very, very simple, very, very clear. Again, Boss Sports is not even a website that's meant for anybody other than black men. So people who decided to chime in, come on in. You can come in and read. But guess what? This content is not for you. This conversation is not for you. This is for black men. And I know you're not accustomed to black men having power and being able to control our own dialogue. But it's a new day in this country, damn it. It's a new day. So the premise of the article was very simple. And you don't have to agree with it. It was saying to black men, those who would never rape a woman. That's who I'm talking to. I'm not talking to the rapists. The small percentage of men, or even the large percentage, whatever, however you want to interpret it, the percentage of men who would ever rape a woman, I was not talking to them. So if you're somehow saying that I'm somehow minimizing the impact of sexual assault or whatever the case may be, that argument is completely invalid, because I was not in any way condoning behavior by rapists. I've seen men who've committed sexual assault against women and even men in my own family, and in all those cases, I wanted those people to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So that's totally invalid. To those brothers who would never rape a woman, I let them know that you must be careful about where you spread your seed, because the world will fool you. The world has you listening to this shit on the radio from rappers, and I did a video like this last year for Tyler the Creator, in which and I had to respond to him like this, because he was thinking that somehow because I'd raised my issue with Lil Wayne and the violent misogyny in hip hop, that somehow I don't want to see a black man get money. So I'm getting it from both sides. I'm getting brothers who think I'm not a real brother because I don't stand by any dumb shit that a black man does. And then I'm getting these liberals over here who are mad because I'm not somehow in lockstep with the liberal democratic agenda, falling victim to the intellectual imperialization that has occurred in black America, where pretty much from the time we're born, we're told that you have to get white people to kind of like you in order to be successful. And honestly, that's how Mark Anthony Neal keeps his job at Duke. That's why I got fired at Syracuse. It's just real like that. I mean, if you look at our resumes, our credentials are pretty much the same. I was the only black man in the United States to get a PhD in finance in 2002. And a PhD in finance, in case you don't know, is very, very difficult. When I got into Columbia, when I was accepted to Columbia, I hope you understand that they took 400 applicants for maybe 8 or 9 people that they were admitting. So I was not a scrub. I was not a slacker. I was not a lazy black man. I wasn't like one of these lazy Negroes that they talk about when they try to explain why black men deserve to have 30% unemployment. I wasn't in that category. So we're all qualified. But the fact is that in this world there are scenarios where you're expected to fold and cater to whatever white folks want you to believe, so that they will give you opportunities. And Malcolm warned us about this a long time ago, that you can't spend your whole life begging. You spend your whole life begging, you might have a big bank account, but you're going to die a spiritual death. That's why I'm very big on black entrepreneurship, on black economic independence, on owning the land on which you stand, but also spiritual and psychological independence, where our self-esteem is not built on whether or not white people like like us. It's built on whether or not we like ourselves. So when I talk to brothers about not spreading your seed, about being sexually responsible, and not sleeping with some woman just because she's offering you sex that night, there is nothing about that argument that anybody can argue with or say that somehow it's objectionable. If you think that somehow I've disrespected something about what certain women might think, I can't help you with that. But the fact is that if you read that article, go read it. Remember, and I published Mark's letter on Ball Sports because I want people to read both sides of the opinion. Because I tell black folks straight out, my goal is not to get you to think like me. I'm not trying to get you to agree with me. In fact, when I meet people and they say I agree with everything you say, I tell them, well, you know what, that means you haven't thought about what I've said hard enough. Because my goal is not to tell you what to think. My goal is to get you to think for yourself. And that's something that we don't do as well as we should as a community. We've got to think for ourselves. Don't let these damn Democrats think for you. Don't let these Republicans think for you. You figure out what your community needs and you come to those conclusions for yourself. And that's the bottom line. So I'm not apologizing for the article. I don't have to apologize. It's not like I've got some TV show where white people are paying my bills and I have to quit. I mean, when I went through that spat, look, you can Google it. When Bill O'Reilly went through his whole week, where he spent the whole week trying to paint me as a radical, crazy black man, so I would get fired from Syracuse. Even then, I didn't fold because I was making money from 4 or 5 different sources, so I didn't need Syracuse's money to pay my bills. I had money. I had my own business. So for black folks who want to know how to be free, you got to have your own business, because if you don't, if you're dependent upon institutions that are committed to a certain agenda, whether it's gay rights, feminism, liberalism, whatever, they will hang your black ass in a second the minute you come in with your own perspective. And I think that in our community, what we have to understand is that black men matter too. We are in a different fight from the liberals. We are fighting to save our families. And I will tell you this, the liberal agenda, the feminist agenda is not going to save our families. It will only continue to destroy them, because you are applying a square peg to a round hole. You are solving a calculus problem with geometry. You're using the wrong tool to solve the problems of your community. Your problems are unique. You must gain a unique understanding, and you must have the courage to solve those problems in the way that you see fit. So go read my article. It's on brothersonsports.com. I'm not worried about the controversy. I actually got a great call from my homeboy Christopher Emden, and he asked me. He said, "Hey B, I see everybody's talking about your article and everybody's upset. Are you all right, man?" I said, "No, brother. I live for this shit. These people can't bend me. I'm not afraid of anybody." I told you, I hung with when I sat with Minister Louis Farrakhan. The greatest thing that he said to me, and I love that man. I don't agree with everything he said, so let's not even get in that boat. But I love that man so much because he brings tears to my eyes, because that's the only place in America, that you can think of where black men are free and strong. He is the only black man in America who can take men out of the penitentiary, out of the worst situation, out of drug addiction, get him off crack, and have that man in a nice suit, speaking proper English, respecting women, respecting himself, standing up strong, defending his community, and doing all this shit that the rest of us aren't doing, because we're so busy trying to be the bougie black middle class. We're off teaching at white universities. We're off going to work for white corporations. We don't want to go down to the hood, to the south side of Chicago, where kids are getting their heads blown off. We're scared of that. We're scared of the real fight, because we've been told that the key to our salvation is complete assimilation. So when Farrakhan and I sat together, and we had one meeting that was one-on-one, and we sat for 3 hours, and it was an amazing experience. It was like talking to my own grandfather. And then we had our second conversation in Arizona. We sat together for 9 hours, but there were more people there. And the greatest thing that, and I've got a lot of compliments from different people, but the most touching comment I received was he said, "When I look at you, I see strength in you. I see strength in your eyes." And I don't know if he was saying it to make me have strength or because he saw it. I hope he actually saw it. And that really was my cue to learn from my predecessors, from my ancestors. And I encourage you to do the same thing. When you getting this pressure from other people, understand that you come from a long line of people who are survivors, who are able to overcome whatever's put in front of them. So don't you let anybody make you buckle. So bottom line on this article, I'm not apologizing for a single syllable. These people don't pay my bills, but at the same time, I respect all their opinions. I'm going to call Mark Anthony Neal up, and we're going to have a conversation, because I'm going to invite the brother. Look, if you want to bash me, if you have something negative to say about me, fine, I don't care. My ego's not tied up into this. You know, I think that if you are in a position where you have an opportunity to speak or to lead on a higher level, you've got to zap your ego out of it. That's why our leadership is so screwed up right now, is because we got these Negroes who are more concerned with being on TV, more concerned with making money, more concerned with kicking it with celebrities than they are with doing the right thing. And so the fact is that we as black scholars must do the right thing, find the truth wherever it lies, and build a foundation for the next generation so that people can build off of what we've done and not feel like they have to start over. That's my goal in life. It's real plain, real simple, just like that article. Go read the article. Go read Mark's rebuttal. Whatever opinion you have, that's fine. I respect it. But I'm in the position that I'm in, and I ain't going nowhere. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Take care. God bless, and have a wonderful day. I'm gone. Peace.